Well, here's another bombshell report for you tonight. This time it comes from the Federation of American Scientists, and you aren't going to hear this anywhere on the major networks anytime soon. It doesn't just include bombshells, but actual bombs, nuclear bombs, as a matter of fact. So here's the news. And you won't, as I said, you won't be hearing this anytime soon in the news, and for good reason, which I'll get to a little bit later. U.S. nuclear weapons have been withdrawn from the United Kingdom. The United States has withdrawn nuclear weapons from the RAF Lakenheath Air Base 70 miles northeast of London, marking the end to more than 50 years of U.S. nuclear weapons deployment to the United Kingdom since the first nuclear bombs first arrived there in September of 1954. With the withdrawal, which has not been officially announced but confirmed by several sources, follows the withdrawal of nuclear weapons from Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany in 2005 and another base in Greece in 2001. The removal of nuclear weapons from 3 bases in 2 NATO countries in less than a decade undercuts the argument for a continuing deployment of such weapons in other European countries. So that is probably the reason why it is not being publicly announced. Now, let me give you some background on this. You may remember this little incident a few months back where some nuclear weapons in the United States actually went missing during an official flight by an Air Force plane from one base to another, crossing the entire continent here. And without the knowledge of the superiors, these nuclear weapons, armed and ready to go, were mounted on these planes, which luckily then safely landed at another Air Force base. Only then it was discovered that those missiles were actually armed. They were dummies. And so this then led to a major internal investigation by the United States Air Force. And as some other reports by the Federation of American Scientists obtained under the Freedom of Information Act pointed out, this internal investigation was actually quite damning. Now, some of it has been redacted in terms of the situation here in the United States, but certainly it led to the investigation of other nuclear facilities in which U.S. arms were involved, and particularly in Europe. And the findings were actually quite alarming, and it was those findings which were partially responsible for closing down this major facility in the UK, because it was deemed to be unsafe. In other words, we're talking about unguarded I shouldn't say unguarded, but nuclear weapons which are not adequately protected from theft or anything else. So the Air Force conducted this investigation. You can find it online. The report is called Air Force Blue Ribbon Review of Nuclear Weapons Policies and Procedures. It is a PDF document. It's quite long, and basically what it said is that the situation is quite significant because there were so many inconsistencies in terms of security measures to keep these weapons out of the hands of unauthorized personnel, that it was quite alarming, even to the Pentagon. So some of the specific examples included that conscripts of these host nations, the nations which had agreed to have our weapons there on their own basis, that conscripts with less than 9 months of experience in military service were actually guarding these weapons. Now, of course, that's not to say that these people were diligent, but certainly one might have thought that some superiors were more involved in supervising these people, and evidently that supervision was lacking. So as a result of that, 2 bases in Europe are being closed down due to the lack of safety. Now, as this article here at FAS points out, why NATO and the United States have decided to keep these major withdrawals a secret is a big puzzle. The explanation might simply be that anything nuclear is secret to begin with, and or that it was done to prevent any kind of public debate on these issues about the future of the rest of the weapons, both in Europe and here, or simply that the Bush administration isn't much interested in arms control altogether, which is probably quite true. But by keeping these withdrawals a big secret so far, and now, of course, it's all coming into light, NATO and the United States have missed a huge opportunity to engage Russia directly and positively about reductions to their non-strategic nuclear weapons and to improve their own nuclear image around the world. The news about the withdrawal from Lakenheath comes, of course, at a very inconvenient time for those who advocate continued deployment of U.S. nuclear arms along the Russian border. So that's why it's being kept secret, both from European citizens and from American citizens. So that's the news for today. We have withdrawal of major nuclear weapons, strategic weapons, from Europe, and nobody is saying anything about it. At the same time, the Bush administration and others, and of course the neocons, as they always do, are pushing for continued deployment of nuclear weapons along the Russian border. Draw your own conclusions from this. Good night.